Becoming a pediatric dentist is a dream for many people, but that dream also has obstacles. It has challenges and it can have hard times. So, Doc, tell us what was the hardest thing for you in this process in applying to pedo?
Honestly, I'd say it's very time consuming while you're trying to finish up your requirements when you're a D4. I think that, trying to finish your application, get your essay in, and any volunteer work that you want to do, clinical experience, but also trying to make sure that you're going to be graduating on time. Otherwise, you might be stuck in school for a little bit before you head into residency. I think that was definitely the hardest thing for me, trying to just stay on top of everything. And, I think that's where time management comes in handy. And, if you plan out everything correctly, that's where you'll be successful, and always making sure, you have like a couple different avenues where you can go and it'll work out. So it can be time consuming, but it's all worth it.
Pedo. Yes, you want to become a pediatric dentist, right? And you can smile and laugh like she's doing because she knows about all the fun she's getting ready to have as a pediatric dentistry resident. But before that, she's going to share with us how she got there and also why she's laughing. All right. This is Dr. Darwin, a new dentist coach, with another episode of Ask Dr. Darwin on Advance, the new dentist podcast show, where we talk about getting into dental school, getting into residency, like her, and then life as a new dentist. Guys, be sure you are continuing to share, comment, and like this information. Also, these episodes and the information that you're learning. Also, subscribe. Close to 70% of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed. So guess what? Help us. Help us help you by getting more attention and having these types of episodes come to your feed by subscribing. All right? Click on the link down below. And this episode of Ask Dr. Darwin is being brought to you by Get Into Dental Residency Challenge. Yes, a challenge. We challenge you, and we're going to help you to jumpstart your residency application so that you get attention, so that you get an interview leading to getting selected into the residency of your dreams. All right. For more details about the challenge, click on the link down below, and we'll see you on the next challenge, which is coming up. Today, we're going to the West Coast, one of the coasts that I used to live in, the West Coast, to celebrate and talk about, via conversation, another new pediatric dentist in the making. She just got into residency, and she's going to talk about her application, her list of programs, why she chose certain programs. She's going to talk about the interview, and she's going to share and reveal where she's going to be taking her talents for pediatric dentistry. And then last but not least, she's going to give us an opportunity to stay in contact with her, but also some tips and advice for those of you that are in this cycle right now. So today we're joined by student Dr. Emily. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I bet you are. You're happy to be here. You're happy to get ready to finish dental school, and you're getting ready to start residency. So I get it. I
Yes.
get it. And you will need all of that energy and enthusiasm when you start treating those kids too. So that's
Yeah.
good. You're starting early. That's good. That's good. So please introduce and tell us more about yourself for those of us that are meeting you for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Emily. I am originally from Venezuela. I moved to the US about 11 years ago. So my family right now lives in Atlanta, Georgia still. And so I am from the South. I grew up over there. So I'm super, super happy to have grown up there. And, I went to undergrad a year in Florida at Kaiser University, and then I transferred to Virginia. So I finished up there during COVID year. And I played volleyball at both of the schools. And I still play now in dental school here in the West Coast. So I'm at USC now. And it has been amazing being on the West. I love moving around. So I feel like I've been through Georgia, Florida, Virginia, and then right now LA. So I'm super, super happy and super grateful to have had the opportunity to move around a little bit and explore the States. So, yeah.
And what was your major undergrad?
So I majored in biology and then I had a
Biology.
minor in chemistry.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh,
yeah, yeah,
ooh,
a little bit of everything.
ooh. Yes, everything under the sun called science. Lots of science.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Lots of
sir.
science. And you said Virginia. What part? What school did you go to in Virginia? What part?
I went to Randolph College in Lynchburg,
Yeah,
Virginia. So
Lynchburg.
right, literally the first city that you see when you're driving up, that's where
Yep.
I was, just right there.
Yep. Lynchburg. That's Highway 360 down
Mhm.
by Bedford and Roanoke, Virginia. I know
Yeah,
exactly. That's where my family is from. So yep, very familiar. Very
yeah.
familiar. Well, congratulations on getting ready to complete dental school and your matching pedo, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. How you matched into pedo, so people that are listening and watching can take some tips, take some advice, and get their applications together as well. So it starts with before it's pedo and becoming a pediatric dentist, it's
Mhm.
about dentistry, right? So tell us a little bit about why dentistry for you.
Yeah, so I think there were a couple different avenues that I decided to go for dentistry. I think when I grew up in Venezuela, we had limited resources to actually go into the dental field or even just get regular cleanings and things like that. So I wasn't super exposed to it. And when I was exposed, it was mainly when I was in pain. And the oral literacy or oral health literacy back in Venezuela wasn't, a priority back in the day. And especially with my parents and their parents, it wasn't something that was really like talked about that much. So it wasn't something that was a priority because there were other things going on in the country that we needed to take care of. So I feel like oral health was like a little bit in the back burner. It was just kind of like, okay, let's just get through, this and make sure you brush your teeth type of thing. And eventually, at some point, my mom, she was able to get braces through her job. And I kind of like going to the visits with her, even though it wasn't for me, but I watched her confidence, skyrocket because she really did not like the way that her teeth looked. And I always wondered like why, why the change and how they did that in like all this time. So I always wondered, like, I was curious, oh, like, what if I could do that, in this field? And I just try to advocate more for the people of like why oral health is important, especially for my grandparents at the time. They're like, but we never had to go to the dentist for this or that. And it was always like everyone would always go to the dentist because they were in pain rather than a maintenance. So I think that's where I decided once we moved over here and we kind of saw the same thing where, we're kind of struggling moving from a country where we have nothing, and we still didn't put our oral health as priority because we had other things to take care of so that we could survive. Especially, I didn't speak English at the time, my parents didn't. They're trying to get, a job, like all these things. Like I feel like oral health was put again in the back burner. So I always felt like that was a little bit of my calling and what I always wanted to go back to and show people that it is important and it affects, your whole overall health rather than just it's stuck in the mouth. So I think that that's where I decided that I wanted to pursue that career. And that's how I got in dental school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that story is great because it just highlights again how unfortunately oral health is kind of set aside or separated from general health,
yeah.
even despite the fact that oral health in your mouth, you need it to do many different things. One
Yep.
of the things is what we're doing right now, which is talking.
Right.
Second to that is smiling
Yeah.
or not being able to smile because missing a tooth, you're in pain.
Yeah.
Chewing, third thing, most
Yeah.
important thing. How are you going to be able to allow your body to digest food if you don't have teeth and you can't chew and you can't break down and let the enzymes? Yes, all the
Exactly.
things that are important functions, but oral health is on the back burner.
Yeah.
So, great story and just another example as to why oral health matters, right? Oral health is health. You don't
Yeah.
have good oral health, you're gonna have some bad health, right?
Oh.
So so how did your experiences in wanting to become a dentist and also probably during your time in dental school lead you to pedo, right? Because you can be a general dentist and still
Mhm.
see kids, but you want to focus on being an expert, a specialist, right?
Mm.
Having the highest level of advanced learning in the specialty where you are. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Darwin. Just want to take a quick break from this episode and hope that you are enjoying it. First thing I want to ask is, did you know that a large majority of the individuals like you who watch these episodes are not subscribed to the channel, to the YouTube channel? Nevertheless, we want to say thank you for watching and continuing to share these videos and episodes with others. Next, I want to say is subscribe. Yes, please hit the subscribe button so that you get these notifications each time these episodes are released. Last is I wanted to connect with those of you who are seeking to become an advanced dentist and specialist. And I invite you to our next event called the Get Into Dental Residency Challenge. This is a special 4-day event that will give you direct access to the mistakes that you want to avoid when you're applying to residency programs, and also the 8 steps that you also want to avoid so that you do not have an unsuccessful application submission. The information that we will be covering over the those 4 days will be some of the tips and strategies that I teach in my one-on-one and group coaching trainings with clients who are continually and successfully being matched into and selected into high-profile residency programs here in North America. So, if you're pursuing or aspiring to get into dental residency this application cycle, this challenge is for you. Check out the link below to receive more details and join the challenge. And also, I would encourage you to enroll in the challenge via the VIP experience. The VIP experience gives you actually access to a 1-hour Q&A session every day of the challenge before we actually get started with the challenge. And it guarantees me to answer your specific questions that you and other VIP experience members have on a daily basis. So I'll see you in the Get Into Dental Residency Challenge, and let's get back to this episode. Providing care to children. So why pedo? Why'd you pick pedo?
Yeah, so I think the more I went through the years in dental school and I was able to get in through my clinical years and I started seeing the kid side of it and, kind of learning from residents different techniques that were advanced for, some of the Frankel 1s, Frankel 2s. I think I enjoyed, the advanced behavior techniques that you would implement for those kids because not every single kid is happy to go to the dentist. I wasn't one of them, especially because when I went, the 2 times that I went when I was in Venezuela, it was because I had pain. So it was never an experience where I wanted to be there because I knew, something was hurting. Like I was already not in a good mood, especially, I'm little, like I don't know what's going on around me. So I always kind of went back to how my story was back in Venezuela. And I feel like because I wanted to be that advocate, I think that starting your oral health literacy from early on is what's going to make the long-term adulthood have, a better oral health overall. Like you'll just be going for the maintenance rather than, oh, I need a filling, I need an extraction. But you learn that from the beginning. Because even with my dad, I put his example all the time. He didn't like going to the dentist because of the experiences that he had as a kid because they were bad, you know? And I feel like because he was anxious and all of these things, had he had a pediatric dentist available in Venezuela, the differences would have made a lot, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's where I just feel like that's where my calling is truly at. And I love working with kids. Even before dental school, a lot of my side jobs that I had was always either nannying, tutoring, or volunteering, where we had to do things with like crafts with all of the kids. And I think especially it's a huge need for bilingual providers, especially for the families who have special health, special needs care as well. I think those families need the most support too,
yes,
because
yes,
number one, you already have, an obstacle that you're trying to get with. And then, you need that provider that's going to understand your
yep,
native language, So
yeah,
being able to be that provider for them, it's something that I definitely look forward to and hopefully being able to provide that for them. So I think that's something that we need a lot more of.
yep.
And that's another reason why, I want to go into this field and, make a difference there if I can.
No, it's not if you can, it's when you can, and that's coming up in a couple of months. But you said some very powerful things related to WIPEDO, advocacy, right? And
Mhm.
prevention. Prevention does not start as an adult.
Correct.
It starts when you're a young adult or
Yeah.
a kiddie adult,
Yeah.
right? As a kid. So
Maybe.
that's important. And again, the whole notion of being able to introduce prevention before the other P, which is pain,
Correct.
right? Yes, pain is a
Yeah.
motivator, but it will also motivate, just like it sounds like it did your dad, it motivated him not to want to go to the dentist anymore,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Prevention matters, and it must start, very early. The best
Mm.
time to start is right before the kids start getting teeth, right?
Yeah.
as you will as you
Okay.
will reinforce, right? As you will reinforce very soon in your
Yeah.
residency, right? So that's great. So let's talk about maybe some of the not so great parts of this process, which was getting started, right?
Mm.
Because there's a lot of questions sometimes. If you're not at a school that has a specialty has specialty programs, you may not have a lot of resources outside of maybe some faculty that are pediatric dentists, but it could be challenging to kind of figure out what should be your steps, meaning your steps to start applying. So share with us a little bit about how you started to prepare your application once you knew I'm applying to pedo. And when did
Mhm.
you know that you wanted to do pedo? Was it, you said clinical time, so was that second year?
That
Was it
was, I think it
last
was
year?
right when we became D. I think it was right when we became D3s. So as
Okay,
soon as we started seeing kids in the clinic, that's when I had my first rotation ever as a D3. And I was
okay.
like, yeah, I think this is gonna be it.
Yeah. So you knew then, and then you had to start pretty quickly with
Right
getting your
away.
application together. So tell us about those steps and how you prepared your application too.
Yeah, so since I knew, I think pretty early, I had just become a D3 and I had my clinical rotation. Since I had decided that that was the moment I wanted to pursue it, I did go ahead and start researching all of the programs because there's a lot out there and I think it can get super overwhelming trying to look at the differences, if it's university based, if it's mixed, if it's hospital. There's a lot out there. So I think that's what I started to do, just kind of researching what I wanted.
And when you say you started doing that research,
Mhm.
what were the tools that you used to start to do that research? Did you go to certain websites? Did you like how did you how did you do your research?
Yes, so I mainly use the APD website and then the ADEA Pass website. So I think ADEA Pass has the most updated information. It tells you when it was last edited. So I think that's the one that was most up to date. But sometimes the AAPD would have a little bit more info on the programs. So that's what I started to do. And for me, it was a little bit different because since I'm not a US citizen, I couldn't apply to certain programs because they would require the citizenship. So I went ahead and found all of the program directors' emails, or at least people that I could contact from the program just to verify the eligibility as far as like if they were requiring citizenship or not, if like there was a sponsorship for visas, things like that, because I just wanted to make sure, if I matched there that I would be eligible to be there. So that was super important for me. So I kind of did that all of my summer of that like D2, D3 year. And once I heard back from the programs, I would either check it off or kind of like, okay, this one I'm not eligible for, so I'm not putting it on the list. And from then, that's when I kind of started narrowing down a little bit. The fact that I wasn't like a US citizen, it did narrow down a lot, so I guess it was good in a way. But I did have like a very limited amount of schools that I could apply for. But I just wanted to give myself the best, opportunities that I could. And if there were opportunities there, I was gonna go and chase them. So thankfully I was able to, kind of have my list ready. And then after I kind of had that list, I made sure that I reached out to my previous mentors and faculty that I had been either working with in the pediatric field, as well as faculty that I knew that had like either graduated and things like that, so that I could do private practice shadowing and shadowing outside of the clinic and just doing a lot of volunteer work. I think that was one big thing for me that I carried on from undergrad. I always worked in a lot of things that were for the community, that were free events and things like that. So the fact that I had those opportunities here at school, I definitely took advantage of those and went to a lot of those things and gained a lot of experience clinically, and also just learning what pediatric dentistry is like outside of a school setting in a way. So I did get to experience those things. And then I also did a couple of externships, which one of my faculties recommended. So while I was in the clinic and it was a little bit slower pace because we were still D3s, I was able to schedule externships at a couple of places and just really see what residency would be like. And that was like the final, like, yes, this is what I'm gonna do.
Now, when you say externships, and again, this is why these episodes are important for you that you guys that are listening and watching. When you say externships,
Mhm.
these are experiences outside of the school. Are these at offices like shadowing, or are these at maybe FQHCs, other community centers? Like, just tell us a little bit more about the externships that you participated, where, how you set them up, and where they were located in conjunction to your dental school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a little bit of both. So I did do externships at FQHCs, and we did have them available through our school. So I was able to do one at the hospital, which is close to downtown LA here. And then I did another one, which was at another FQHC based, and it was a little bit farther out into like Koreatown, kind of that area. It was still close to campus. So it worked out, but I also did externships for residencies. So I was able to go into a couple of programs that they offered externships for you to come look at the program and, meet the residents. Sometimes you would meet the program director as well, and you would see what a day in the life of a resident would be. So for those, I just reached out directly to the program director and asked if, what their availability was and if they accepted externs. So I kind of did those all kind of together. I separated obviously a couple of them. I think I did in total four or three residency externships, and then I did the two externships at the FQHCs. So I did those for a while.
So just real quick before I forget, because I will forget, I'm curious, and I'm hoping that you'll tell us when we get to this part of our discussion. I'm curious to know whether or not those externships that you did at those four residencies,
Mhm.
number one, if you applied to those programs, and number two, if you got interviews at those programs, and then number three, if you matched to any of those programs. So don't let me forget to ask her that question because success success leaves clues. It leaves
Okay.
clues. And there may be a clue on some of the things that you have been doing in preparation, not only for your application, but also have has prepared you to get selected and get
Mhm.
matched as well. So we're going to stick a pin on that particular question and come back to it because
Sure.
that's one of the things that we always talk about here, right? As you were developing your candidacy, you've got to go out
Mhm.
both within your school, but also external to your school and your surroundings as well. All right. Unless you're just in a city in a location where, within a 5 mile radius, you've got 10 residency programs and opportunities to do stuff. And yeah, that could kind of happen in a big city like LA, but still not necessarily going to be the case. So, externships, volunteering, shadowing and speaking to faculty, doing some research in programs. Tell us now about well, anything else. Did you do anything else as you were preparing your application as far as gathering more information that you needed so that you could both do your CV and do your personal statement and then also fill out the very long and tedious ADIA pass application. Anything else that you were doing as part of your strategy to get your information together that's going to represent you and who you are as a candidate? Anything else that you
I
did?
feel like that kind of covers all of it, if I'm not
Okay.
forgetting anything, but that's pretty much the gist of
Right.
it.
So with that being the gist of it, that now means you got your application,
Mhm.
but having an application is only as good as the programs that are going to see it, right?
Mhm.
So there has had to have been some kind of strategy related to which programs you're going to send your application to. So that
Mhm.
means you've got to develop a list of programs, right? And with that comes several criteria. Am I going to apply to school-based programs, hospital-based programs, FQHC or community health center-based programs? So tell us a little bit about your list of schools and programs, um, that strategy and the number of schools and programs that you applied to and why. Why not only that number, but also why those programs as well.
Yeah, so I ended up applying to, I want to say total was 13 or 14 schools, and one of the schools was a non-match. I actually didn't know that it was a non-match until I had applied. So, um, yeah, that I think it was like out of my cards, but I applied anyway. And like I was saying, for me it was like a little bit different choosing which schools because I didn't have a whole lot to choose from because of the requirements for the citizenship. So I think for my strategy and just because even with dental school, I think whatever opportunity was in front of me, I was putting myself out there. So I kind of like that's what I did, based on the pool of programs that I was looking at. I wanted to choose from there somewhere where, number one, I wanted to be closer to my family back in Atlanta. I've loved it here in the West Coast, but I do want to go back home. And I know that eventually I want to practice in the East Coast. So that was definitely one of the things that I wanted to consider was location. I wanted to like be a lot closer to my family. And then I did want a either university or a mixed program where I could get, still continue my education as a student, especially off of like right off of school. I think it's important to continue in a university based or a mixed program. So that's kind of what I was looking for because I did still want to be exposed to hospital and that aspect of pediatric dentistry, which is important. So that's kind of like where my mindset was at when looking at those kind of like programs and stuff like that. So I think that's how many schools it was. And then what was the other question? Sorry, I'm blanking.
Just basically, the reasons, your criteria, like things that maybe you were looking for in programs that also helped you formulate your list, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted besides the location and everything, and of course it being either a university or mixed program, was also the diversity in the program. I always want to be surrounded by an environment where I feel like it is diverse. So that was another thing that I would always look at and just try and find, especially like if the programs had like Instagram pages and stuff like that, I would go and like look what the program looks like and research a little bit about the areas where it was at, because patient population was definitely a big factor for me. Like I was saying, I want to be that advocate for those families whose main language is Spanish, and they don't understand English that well, because that was my family when we first came. So that's definitely something that I've always wanted to give back. So I know that those communities are underserved. And so I wanted to be around those populations as well, which I've gotten a lot of exposure here in LA. So I wanted a program that would also embody that when I went into the residency. So those were some of the things that were like a little bit like my non-negotiables in a way.
Right, right.
So yeah.
What about programs related to tuition or stipend based, anything like that?
Yeah, so I think for most of the programs that I had on my list, they were uh university and hospital based. So sometimes they would be mixed. So it'd be like a hybrid. So you would
Mhm.
have to pay tuition and you would also get a stipend. Whereas there were some programs where it was like tuition only, and then there were a couple programs that were stipend only, no tuition. So I kind of had that already in my mind, that I knew, wherever the opportunity was, that's what I was gonna follow. So that
Yeah,
wasn't a main priority for me. I
right.
really just wanted to, have the other things that I listed as like my main priority, rather than, if I'm gonna pay or if I'm gonna get paid. That wasn't like on top of my list, I guess. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yes, and I asked that question because for some people, they like the idea of being paid to
Hmm.
learn to become a specialist, right? Which
Right.
means typically a hospital-based program where you're going to be a post-grad year one or two, and depending on what city you're in, you can, get paid as a resident anywhere from close to $90,000 in New York to less than that, 40 or 50 in other states and other cities. So for some people, that is a criteria, right?
Mhm.
That they're looking for because they don't want to have to pay any more tuition after dental school. So
Yeah.
that's good to know. So 13 programs, one of which was non-match, and that was part of the number of schools and number of programs that you apply to. So after you apply, you have to wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait some more, and you may wait a little bit more. And while you're waiting for a call, an email, a text saying, "Hey, Dr. Emily, we invite you for an interview." So let's dive into that area as it relates to the number of interviews you received based on your list of 13 programs, what the interview days were like, what questions they asked. Did you have a chance to meet with residents? All of that. We want to hear all of that as to what your residency interview experience was like.
Yes, so I was blessed to get three interviews, and one of them was from the non-match program. So that was the first interview I received. And I had my two other ones a little bit later. As far as interview days, I feel like they were pretty similar in all of the schools that I went. They were, you would meet with the residents and kind of have your resident uh, applicant interview, and then you would also meet with either the program directors and then the rest of the faculty. So it was kind of like a group interview, like a group versus you. So that's always a little bit intimidating, but I did feel like I was prepared, because I was, for my mentors, I was able to know which styles of interviews would be given. So I think I was kind of prepared to, have like one-on-ones or have, the group style interviews or even have with other applicants as well. So I kind of was prepared in that sense. But I think they, obviously they ask you why pediatrics. That's, the main question. And I think like I remember this one question that I had never heard before. So that one did catch me for a second to try and think and
What was
give
it?
me.
What was it? What was it? What was it?
It was, what would your parents change about you? Yeah, so I think that was like a hard question. And I mean, it just threw me off because I never had heard it before. I had done all the practice questions, all the things, but I remember just taking a second and just gathering my thoughts. And I remember what I said was that I think that they are proud of me, and I don't think that they would change anything about me. I think that the way that they've raised me, they are proud of who I've become. I think if they wanted to, what they could do is add another child because I am an only child. So I think maybe they could do that for me. And I just
Made
remember.
you, changed you into a twin, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I did get a couple of laughs from that response, but it was definitely one that I had never heard before. So I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember telling my parents afterwards, and they were like, yeah, we would never change anything about you. But yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe another you. I don't know if we'd be able to deal with another you. Like one is enough.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, that was definitely one that, I mean, it was a hard question. And I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
thankfully, I think like once you really gather your thoughts and really, feel comfortable, then, you'll be able to give a good answer. And you know yourself, so no one else knows you better than yourself. So I think that always helps, when you're kind of in those settings like that. And then I remember also I had like a rapid fire questions. They were just like random little things like beach or no beach, like, mountains or hike or whatever, random things like that. And you just have to give like a either or answer. And I thought those were like kind of like, a little fun questions to kind of take the little stress off a little bit. So I did like those. And I mean, everything else was just really why dentistry. I was asked why, because I spoke about in my personal statement the connection of playing volleyball and pediatric dentistry. So I did get asked about that a couple times. Like why did I think that was the connection? And so, just making sure that I guess what I wrote was true. But yeah, I feel like that was like my hook, I guess, for my personal statement, just like that connection between playing volleyball and connecting pediatric dentistry to that. So I was asked that about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Gals, guys that you're listening and watching right now, this is why your documents matter. Your personal statement matters. All right. She probably intentionally mentioned very vaguely in her personal statement the connection in such that they were intrigued and probably wanted to know more when they first read it,
Hmm.
right? Because they brought it back up. And
Right.
this
Right.
will happen to you when you get to that stage. They will bring up things that are in your personal statement. Because, yes, we read your personal statements, even though you're one of 300 that we're reading, but we're looking for things that stand out, that are unique,
Mm.
that not only tell a story, but also make us intrigued about you. So intrigued that we want to invite you for an interview to learn more. And
Absolutely.
it came out, right?
Yeah.
Right? Dr. Emily, you mentioned about volleyball and pediatric dentistry and how they're connected. Can you explain that a little bit more? Right. Like, so
That's how it goes.
be intentional with the understanding that you're looking to get to the next step. And that next step from your personal statement, CV, and the other things that you're applying, utilizing in your documents to apply is to get an interview, right?
Hmm.
So that you can give us more details and give us more context as to why and how volleyball is like pediatric dentistry. right? Or whatever symbolisms and things that you're using to describe your experience or why pedo or why a particular specialty. It's in the story, in the narrative, and
Mhm.
also be prepared to talk more in detail about your narrative, right? That is what makes you unique, is your story, your personal statement. That's why it's called personal statement. Not group statement, not everybody's statement, but personal statement. So some standard questions it sounds like with a couple of rapid fire, either or, black or
Mhm.
white, sun or cold,
Yeah.
pizza or lasagna or, whatever that is. And then some questions more thoughtful about, what would your parents want to change about you? Here's one that comes up sometimes. Write this down. If we had your friends, hey, what's your name of your friend? What's one of your
Asha.
friends? Huh?
Asha.
Asha. So if we had Asha right here, what would Asha say is the thing that describes you the most? Right? That's a question that may come out, right? And again, they're asking these questions not to just waste time. All right, we got 15 more minutes. We just ask some random question. No, they're asking questions to get to know you more, right? To get to understand you as a person in front of them based on what they read about you on paper, right?
Mm.
From on paper to in person. Any other questions that were kind of strange or that were different amongst the three interviews that you had?
No, I feel like they were pretty, like they were on par with like what they tell you to kind of know and just make sure like obviously like they ask you what your strengths and weaknesses are and things like that. Pretty standard, I'd say. Um, I was asked like what my favorite color was and why. So that I feel like that's a definitely like a Pete's questions I hear always come up.
Yeah.
So
Those and the superhero princesses.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you had a
Hey.
superpower type thing, right? Yeah. All of those. All of those. So you get through your interviews three times, and then you also have to wait again. You have to wait to submit your candidate rank list because the programs have to submit their candidate rank list as well, who they want as candidates for their program. So now you've got another job to do. Not only did you have to prepare your application and then prepare yourself via mock interviews and some other things, but now you have to prepare the programs and who you want to go to first, second, and third based on the three programs that you have. So share with us more about your mindset and your strategy and thought process as to which programs, how you went about ranking the programs, right?
Mhm.
What were some of the determinants that you saw, or things that you saw from interview day that helped you put together your strategy for ranking, and just tell us why you ended up ranking um, one, two, and three. And you can share the programs now or later or not. Doesn't make a difference. But more importantly, is wrapping your head around. All right, how do I go about this? And based on my interviews, where do I want to be? How
Mhm.
am I gonna? Who's first? Who's second? And who's third? How did you do that?
Yeah, so that was pretty tough because one of the programs was a non-match. So that was the first decision I had to make was to either because I had gotten the acceptance from the non-match and I was only given about like a week to decide if I wanted to go through or because if I did, then I would have to drop out of the match and not go through with my other interviews. So that was definitely hard because I did enjoy the program quite a bit. It was also in the East Coast, it was in Florida. Um, it was in Nova, Southeastern, and I really liked it. It was right there by the beach, so the location was amazing. But I just wanted to see what my other two interviews were gonna be like then. Like I didn't feel like I was ready to drop everything and go through with it because I had two other opportunities waiting. So I
Yep.
prayed a lot and, I literally like the day before the deadline, I just decided to decline the offer and just go through with the match and see it all the way through. I think that's where my prayer was at, and I am super super blessed and happy um that I did do that because it was the outcome that I expected. So I had to pray a lot.
Expect it or want it, or how you and how your strategy help you get it. Like,
Yeah,
cause you still got two programs. Now you got two
yeah.
programs. Which one do I put first?
Yep, yep. So that was
Like,
hard to, especially because both of the programs, they were both on the East Coast and in the South, which is what I wanted. That's like one of my first things that I, had to think about. I want to be close to my family. So I was blessed enough to have two programs that, I was interviewed at and they were close enough to my family. But I also uh wanted, like, I based it off of how my interview day went, and because it was hard, both programs had everything that I wanted. They had diversity, they had the patient population, they were in the South, so it was so hard. So I think what ended up making me put my number one was really how my interview day went and where I felt like it was truly like the family that I wanted to spend another 2 years with. And so that's why I ended up ranking LSU as my number one, and I ranked UAB as my number two.
okay, so hold on. So y'all following, right? Y'all following. I know suspense is killing you, right? I know. Nova first. We said no. We're gonna go through my number one or number two. We have LSU and we have UAB, right? UAB
Yes,
is University of Alabama, Birmingham. All right.
yes,
In the South. In the South. Still can
sure.
get to Atlanta. You can drive from Atlanta. I mean, from UAB to Atlanta, just take 20 east. You'll be there in a couple hours. LSU a little bit longer. You probably need to get on a plane, but it's still in the South. You still can get Delta flies there,
Yeah.
Southwest flies there. You'll be fine, right? So you got LSU and we got UAB. All right, so y'all ready? I'm ready. She's ready. Tell us where you're going to be taking all of this love and affinity for kids and volunteerism and advocacy. Uh, where you're going to be taking your talents to en route to becoming a board certified pediatric dentist.
LSU.
LSU. I didn't think it's going to be LSU, but that's good. Had
I
50-50
love
chance.
it.
LSU, congratulations. Congratulations. That's so
Thank you.
good. That's so good. So, LSU, Baton Rouge or New
I'm gonna be
Orleans?
in New Orleans.
New
Yes.
Orleans. Okay. Gotcha. Congratulations. Congratulations. So,
Yes.
LSU. So for those of you that have been waiting to hear more information about LSU, this is it. LSU Pedo program in New Orleans. So let's talk about that. Get some more details because a lot of stuff about some of these programs is not on the website. You can't find it. You don't have the behind the scenes, the real deal, Holyfield description of what's going on. So let's share that right now. So what about the program really excites you? What are you excited about matching at LSU and being trained
So
at
many.
LSU?
My goodness. Yes. So I think one of my favorite things is, where my passion really lies at, and it's the patient population. I think that was super, super important for me. And it's something I feel like asked in my interviews, like, what was the patient population like? And, especially like underserved communities that don't speak English. So that was something that I saw a lot. And even when I stayed in New Orleans, I did see quite a bit, and I was able to, speak Spanish, and, people were always surprised. I always surprise people when I speak Spanish. So that was always nice. And the fact that I'll be able to still continue education right after school, because it is university and hospital based. So it is a mix of both. You get like the good of both. So I think that's something that I wanted to be able to have. I still wanted to be taught and also get the experience from the hospital, because that is a big factor, especially, when we're trying to later on see kids that need general anesthesia. I wanted to make sure that my experience in the hospital was going to be great and that I would be a well-rounded and well prepared by the end of my residency while still learning, in a university-based program. So that was definitely another, one of my checklists that was like a non-negotiable. I wanted to be in a program like that. And the diversity, when I went to my interview, I was able to meet everyone, all of the faculty, even the staff, which they are amazing. And I knew that I wanted to be around them for the next 2 years, which is why I really think that I felt the most at home. And they just made me feel so happy, and I was just so happy to be there. And my parents could tell too. I could always tell my parents everything. So after the interview, I called them like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I think this is it. I have to, I'm going to. And we prayed a lot on it, and I was blessed that I did match at my number one. So I'm super, super excited, especially being back to the South. My parents are even happier because they'll be a lot closer to me. And, I do see myself just practicing there as well. I love the city. It's amazing. The food is so good. There's just so much. Like, I mean, I'm just super, super excited and super blessed to have this opportunity. So,
Well,
yeah.
congratulations. Congratulations. You mentioned diversity. You mentioned the ability to be to support and help a population that speaks Espanol. That right,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Está muy importante en el futuro para informed consent, right?
Sí, sí.
And studies have shown that when individuals have a provider that speaks their language, looks like them, or that they can relate to, they're more willing to do what? Follow the instructions, right?
Ex-
Follow the treatment plan,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
There's a
I
trust
mean,
factor that multiplies in
absolutely.
those situations. So that's
Yeah.
great because that alone can improve patient outcomes,
Oh, yes,
right?
absolutely.
Healthy, increase healthier outcomes, right? So stipend, number of residents,
So we have 4 residents, and
four.
then we do have a stipend as well. So yeah, I'm excited
Come
for
on,
that.
come on. What's the stipend? So people know.
The stipend, so I actually haven't looked into it yet, but I think
But
when
there's
I
no tuition, right? There's no tuition for the
no
program?
tuition, it's just
Okay.
stipend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bueno.
So I think when I last checked, it was like 50K for the first year and then 55 for the second year. I think that was from the AAPD. So that's the thing. That's why you have to check both sources, both
Yeah.
AAPD and then ADIA pass, to just make sure that the info is accurate, because sometimes, they always update it. But I haven't checked since,
Yeah. Yeah.
like summer. But
Well,
yeah.
bottom line is you're getting paid to learn and getting paid to learn at the expert specialist, board certified specialist level.
Yes, exactly.
So win-win. And you get a chance to continue to help people, children and their families, right?
Yeah.
So,
Super excited.
and you get to immerse yourself in the New Orleans culture down there,
Yes.
down there, down there. Well, that's so great. That's so great. Um, and it seems like you are definitely excited about the opportunity, which you should be, right? Because this is the program. Not only is it your number one program, but it's also the program that said, or one of many that said, we want you and we are willing to train you to become a board certified pediatric dentist. That's
Mhm.
what you want. That's the best program for you. The one
Yes.
that wants you in, which means that they agree that they are going to train you to become an expert. So that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Now, next thing that's going to be awesome for especially for all these people here that are listening and watching is getting some advice, right? And you shared some really great dental pearls and things, action steps, all steps that left some clues. Um, but before we get to the tips and advice, I'm going to go back to the question I asked you about whether those four residencies that you did externships with, were any of those four any of the programs you got interviews at?
They were actually not.
Not okay. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. All right. That's
Yeah.
fine. They're lost. They're lost.
You know, only God knows.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. All right. So tips and advice. Knowing what you know now, the things that you've been through, things that you've done, the strategies that you've implemented since summer of D2, between D2 and D3 year, knowing what all of that, what are some tips? Three, four, five, six, whatever you have, tips and advice for those people that are listening and watching right now that's going to help them not only jumpstart their application, not only help them get attention and get to the first step, which is the interview, but also any other tips related to getting selected into pedo. What are the things that they must do right now throughout this long process?
I think my number one is definitely start early. I think that you need to make sure that you have everything that you need early so that you have everything in a list because like I said, it gets overwhelming. So if you don't have a list of what you need to do, a checklist of what you're still missing, then it's gonna get a little crazy by the time that you're trying to fill out the application online. So just make sure you do all of your research prior to the application opens so that you have everything ready to go when it does open. Like, if you're trying to get your recommendation letters, if you're trying to research which program is best for you and where you would want to be at for the next 2 years, all of those things, do it way before the application starts. Don't wait until the application starts and now you're going to do the research. Don't do that. And then another thing I definitely recommend to extern, I think that, it shows you more of pediatric dentistry and it can, show you if that's really what you want to do or if maybe you're like, okay, maybe it's not for me. I think I definitely recommend it because you get a lot more exposure to what pediatric dentistry is like outside of school. So definitely do those if you have those opportunities available in your school and even outside of your school as well. Like always reach out. There's always something to do. There's always opportunities. And there's always other doctors that you can ask and shadow and do all of these things just to get that exposure because sometimes I feel like it can be limited just if you stay within your school. But if you branch out, that's really where you're gonna find more and you'll find more mentors along the way too. Like you always want to keep growing and start making connections, especially, for example, for me, where I don't have a family of dentists and things like that, I want to go and, make those connections for myself and hopefully pass that on to like the next generation and so on. And I think another thing that always I say when you do your volunteers or things that you want to add to your CV, make sure that are things that you're passionate about and they're not just to add another thing to your resume. I think that's super important and it speaks volume on your character because you're doing something because you truly want to do it rather than doing it because it just looks good on resume or something, because you might get asked about it. So if you just put it there just as another thing to list, you might not have that connection to what you actually did. So definitely do the things that you're passionate about and it will show in your application. And, once you get through all of that, just make sure that you show who you are. Everyone knows you at that point on paper. So what you reflect on the real life is now how they're going to see what your personality is like and how it's going to mesh with other residents, with the faculty and things like that. Because other than that, they just know you in a 2D paper. They don't know who you are, outside of those papers. So definitely just show them, what you bring to the table, how your personality is, and that'll take you places.
Yeah, some great tips. I heard five of them. Start early. Use a checklist. Number two, do some research before, not after, but before the application opens. Number three, do some externships because they're going to increase your exposures and your experiences, things that you can also put on your CV and talk about in your personal statement, right? Four, add to your CV items that you're passionate about, right? because when you're passionate or really love something, that love and enthusiasm will shine through in how you write and how you describe it, how you communicate it on paper and writing, and then also in person at the interview, right? And then also just being authentic, both in person, but also before in person on paper. Be authentic in how you're expressing the things that you are interested in doing or care about or want to advocate for. Be authentic in that because that will show come showtime at the interview, right? They're going to be, they'll be able to see, they'll listen to what you're saying, but they're also going to be looking at what you say, right?
Yep.
Looking at you and how you embody a level of enthusiasm and excitement, right? And I don't know if you all have been seeing, but ever since we started this episode, Dr. Emily's been smiling from the beginning, smiling and laughing. So that you see what I mean? She doesn't have to say anything. All she does to do is smile. You can tell that she embodies excitement, funniness, happiness, gratitude, and she's just being her authentic self. All right. 5 great tips and pieces of advice that you should be implementing right now for pedo. Not right yesterday. No, right now. Not now, but right now. Right.
Hmm.
So, Doc, what's the best way to get in contact with you if people have some more questions for you right now before you write go into pedo? Right.
Yes, yes. So I'm pretty active on my Instagram page. So my handle is toothy chica underscore, toothy chica underscore. And yeah, you can DM me. I check those all the time. So I'm always willing to help. I can read over personal statements. I can, guide about programs I saw and things like that. I'm always open. And even if it's just dental advice too, whichever, I'm always open to help and happy to do it. So just hit me in my DMs and I will be happy to give you an answer.
Now, listen, she's got some dental school requirements she's finishing up. She may have boards. You taking the boards yet?
Oh yeah, that's done.
Okay, that's done. So y'all lucky. She's got a little bit more time for you. But she's also going to be spending time with her family and relaxing before July 1st starts because that's when um, the real work starts, right? It's very easy. It's very easy to get through pedo. I'm sorry. It's very easy to apply to pedo. I know you're like, what are you talking about, Dr. Darwin? Yeah, it's easy. That's the easy part. Now, what she's getting ready to do in a couple months is now you got to get through. You got to get through the residency in 2 years.
Yep.
That's the hard part. Getting in is easy. It's getting through that's the next step, the next journey, the next thing that you have to accomplish as well. So, Doc, thank you so much. Congratulations. We want to continue to stay in contact with you and follow your journey through pedo and how you're surviving the stipend years, getting paid to learn and being a specialist. But we're really excited for you. Shout out to Venezuela.
Yeah.
Shout out to ATL. Shout out to New Orleans, right? And again, just excited. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for listening and watching. And we're gonna thank you even more when you go to the next episode. Go to the next episode right now. Go, go, go.